Dr. Miglani. How are you?
Hi everyone, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for joining us on this show today. Today, we will be focusing on how to help people that just landed new jobs, how to help them so that they can achieve success, make impact on their new roles. So, I'm going to ask you this. Why are the first 100 days in a new job so critical?
Yeah, thank you for that question and a good start for us. I think people spend, myself included, when I was early on in my career, even for that matter, 5 years ago, when you spend so much time looking for that perfect role, that perfect position, whether that's as simple as an interior company change, so when large organizations let you move from one role to the other, whether that's a promotion because you've worked hard for that promotion too, or if you've actually gone ahead and changed your companies and your entire roles. I think it's important because people spend so much time preparing for that, making sure they get that role. And once they do, there's a sigh of relief, which is good, which is not bad. You should always pat yourself on the back. But you got to go in with a playbook. Like I always say, for any athlete, no matter where they are in their professional careers, whether they are new to a new team or they've changed teams or whatever that might be, they always walk in with a playbook. They always walk in with a network of people, including their coaches, including their mentors, to work with them and say, what should I be focusing on? What should I be prioritizing? What do who are the stakeholders in this new role? Especially people who actually do internal transfers or get promoted internally within companies. Somehow they think I've been there, done that, and they don't seem to remember to create their plan. So, the idea of this book is to bring together all those experiences, my own experiences. I also did my PhD work a couple of years ago and utilized the research that's out there in the market to really talk about what works very well. I also had an opportunity to interview quite a lot of leaders, as you mentioned earlier in the introduction, with leaders at Amazon, leaders at Zapier. They've talked about firstly what they have gone through in their careers and how they prepare to be successful, but also as hiring managers, as hiring leaders, what do they look for in those new people who are coming in? So it's a combination of different perspectives to really bring in those tips and techniques to make you successful.
Thank you, Dr. Iglani. So you talked about playbook. How can someone out there that maybe they just got a new role, how can they develop this playbook that you are talking about?
Yes. So the playbook starts very simply with the people connection. And I think many a times when you start a new role, you hear the pressure from people and they say, oh, wait, I wish you had started yesterday, or I wish you had started a month ago. There is so much to do. We are so happy you're here, but there's so much to do. That's
Yeah.
the kind of pressure sometimes you end up landing in. And if that's being said, you're trying very hard to push fast, show results fast, and move fast, which is fine. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important to start with that people connection, to make sure that stakeholder map that you're creating. And that's one of the first things I focus on my book is how do you create that stakeholder map? Who's important? Who's a good person to know the information about? Who do you need to go through approvals? And I've seen as an organizational development leader, and somebody who's designed organizations, I feel organizations are getting more and more complicated. Where we had talked about reducing the complexity, it's only getting more. So, who needs to be part of this discussion? Who needs to be part of the approvals? All of that. So, they can actually start by creating that stakeholder map in partnership with their hiring leader. Because at the end of the day, your performance and how you're doing is going to be managed by your direct leader. So make sure you work with them, you partner with them, sit down, create a stakeholder map, and make sure you have the right people you're engaging with and you're moving along with people. Because if you want to go fast, yes, you can go alone. But the point being is, if you don't bring people along, then you'll never ever reach your destination. So that's the concept that I really focus on, making sure people understand that that's where step one is.
Okay, no, I like that. And I'll say I particularly appreciate your point about creating that stakeholder map. I'll say my last role that I held, it took me a while to get the different stakeholders that I need to work with because maybe I did not have anything like a stakeholder map. If I had something like this, then maybe it would have made my job a lot easier. Yeah, but I eventually get got there, but it took a while. So you talked about people connection, you talk about stakeholder map. What next in this playbook creation?
Well, I think it goes back to results. You can talk about the great, trajectory you've had or career you've had in your past job. And I'll share an example with you. We know the top five companies in the world, and anytime when we had hired anybody from one of these companies, these individuals will always say, "Oh, this is how we did it in that company, and this is how we did it in that company." So there was, and this is a caution I actually call out very loudly in my book, which is be careful, observe the room, read the room, as they say, right? Observe your culture. Once or twice throwing names is fine, but you've got to show results. You've got to show the visualization of where are you headed, especially if you're a leader and you have a team reporting to you, or if you replaced a previous leader. Those complexities create more and more layers for you that you have to get over. So you have to plan. Get up every morning and plan what your day looks like. And make sure you're checking in. The first 2 quarters, that is 6 months, as I say in business or in organizations, is the most important one. That's where people have their eyes on you and they're looking at making you successful. Organizations have spent so much money and time bringing you into that role, so they want to make sure you're successful. So give them all the opportunity to do that by making sure you have your homework done. So stakeholder map is just the first step. You need to start implementing it. You need to start showing results and making sure if you're a team leader, along with that, your team understands your vision, which is the most important piece. And I have a whole chapter on that, but that's another digging deeper kind of a situation. When you are a leader, things get more complicated but easy to handle. But make sure if you are bringing a playbook from the other company, utilize your foundations, but make sure you are, I would say, tweaking it along to make it work for this new culture and new company.
No, that's good. And I know we are talking about someone already on the job. Now let's look at another group of people, someone aspiring to get a new job. How can they prepare before even stepping into this new role?
I think it's so important to understand what are you looking for. So for instance, there are two kinds of people, right? One would be somebody who is a student and getting into the corporate world first time. I think there is that transition that you have to manage very well, especially the newer generation. They've had a very different experience in colleges, in academic institutions, and they sometimes expect that same experience to translate into their work experience, and that may or may not be the case. I think having great arcades, free food, all of that is great and nobody would deny that, but that's not the reason to take on a job, right? So that's one kind of a target audience. The other could be somebody's already in a job and is hungry to do more or is looking for a career change. So I do a lot of executive coaching also, and coaching mid-level managers when they come and ask me, I'm feeling dissatisfied and I want to start looking for jobs. At that time, I always tell them, sit down and ask yourself, what are the top three must-haves in your new job? And you can also create a list of nice to haves. For instance, I live in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, and for us, commuting is a big problem. So for me, whenever I have done that change, it's always been top of my criteria, which is I have a family, I have other areas where I'm passionate about, and I want to have that balance or harmony in life. So I don't want to commute that much, right? So that was one of the top things. creating the list of the why, firstly understanding why I'm changing. If it's career, moves you're doing just for the sake of it, ask yourself again, why? Is it worth it? The other thing is you also are economically dependent on your paycheck. A lot of people in the last few months who made rash decisions are still looking for jobs and are getting pressurized, right? For the payments they have to do, the school fees they have to pay, or whatever that might look like. So I would say talk to somebody you trust, a mentor, a coach, before making any leaps. And if you're ready to, utilize a proper list of must haves when you're going to that new job.
Oh, that's so awesome to have a must-have list of what exactly we are looking for in the new job. Now, one of the critical elements of success, I'll say, in any position is the relationship that one has with the manager and, of course, the peers. So I'll ask you this: how can professionals effectively build trust with their new boss, when entering a new role?
So you said two things there, the boss and the peers. So I'll start with the peers, which is very exciting. When I did my PhD research, one of the first questions I was asking all the participants in my research study is when you first joined a job, which person or relationship helped you to assimilate faster? And the boss was a no-brainer, right? A lot of people said boss. But the pattern that emerged from my research was the peers. And if they felt part of the group. And I had simple examples where people would say, we went out for lunch and they would pull my leg. And once they pulled my leg, I knew I was part of the group, right? So that feeling of belonging in the larger group with your peers was a big one. And then shifting to your question about the boss, absolutely. I have seen very well made careers crumble when they don't have their managers supporting that individual with that overconfidence that somebody might bring from the other role or the other job or wherever they were before. It needs to translate into the current situation. It needs to translate into where you are today because the organization is there to deliver results, to support you, but also they need to make sure that, at the end of the day, your work is showing results. So it is a symbiotic relationship. And my biggest goal through this book and through my experiences and research is to tell people don't wait for the organization to ask something of you. Be ready, be proactive, and that's what they're looking for.
Oh, good. So you mentioned your book, Navigate Your Career. Can you tell us the motivation behind this book? Why did you write this book?
I think you alluded to something in your own past. When I joined the corporate world, you have these amazing dreams in your eyes, and you're thinking you're going to change the world, which is true. I think people still do that. I think that's where I hit some hurdles. And as good as people were around me, as good as the organizations that I was in, really grateful for the experience I received. I look back and I say, oh my goodness, I could have done that better, or I should have done this better. So for me, this whole concept of writing this book came from a lot of the consulting and coaching that I was doing. And I realized there are people who need this help. In fact, anybody at any level can pick up this book and say, I'm going to get ready, right? I'm going to create that success roadmap for myself. Here are the ways to do it. And I'm going to make sure I implement it and give yourself that 30, 60, not 90, I would say 100 days, because that's where you're going to help yourself in keeping a track. And I would say getting buried in distractions. When I first joined the corporate world, being with least experience, you actually get distracted. You get distracted by the free opportunities that are there, and you forget you still have to produce results, right? So I think through my own experiences of ups and downs, and so many people I've coached in the last 2 decades, I feel this is an important topic, not covered enough by organizations because organizations do a wonderful job of onboarding, and I have been part of teams that have created their onboarding programs, but they are not customized for you, for the individual. They talk about the organization. So learn from it, absorb as much information as you can, then take this book and create your own customized plan for that success. So for me, the story is personal, and I hope people can learn through it too and truly see success in their careers.
Indeed. So, Dr. Miglani, with over 20 years of experience, you mentioned ups and downs. I would like to get from you, can you share a career mistake that you made and what you learned from it? Maybe one with us.
Yes, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share something. And I mentioned it a little bit in my previous statement, but I went into the top of the world company when I was very, very young in my professional life and got simply distracted by things like free food, got distracted. And I have to share this. I'm sure your listeners will enjoy this one. I knew that they had free massages, so I would, but it was not easy. You had to like, it was like backed up because everybody wanted a free massage, so you had to wait for a month or two. And I remember sitting down and thinking, I need to get on that list, and I wasted so much time over there. So I think when you're new to experiences and you misread that these things are there for you because there are reasons for you to work hard, right? And to get these perks and these options to help create that engagement, but your work comes first, right? So that was something I would say a big career misstep, wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy around these distractions. I could have utilized that time and more in building that relationship with the people around me, in working with the expectations that my manager had and having a clear idea of what I'm supposed to deliver week after week. And that was a big mistake I took. And I've learned so much from that.
Awesome. So avoid distractions. That's what I'm hearing,
Yeah.
and always deliver results. No, that's good. You've worked with companies like Google, Salesforce. What do high-performing organizations like these, what do they do differently during their onboarding process?
I mentioned a small anecdote of my time at Salesforce, and I mean, all these companies that you just named have had excellent onboarding processes, and I'm grateful. I've learned a lot from those. I always felt like I'm being assimilated, engaged from day one, or even before. In fact, it could also start as early as when the offer process came through. So I think these companies are amazing. I would say one story for Salesforce that the aha moment, came up so well for me was it was day one of orientation. And on the agenda, it just said till the half day. And I was surprised because my previous experiences would have been either a 1 week orientation or at least 3 days orientation. So I was curious to see what's coming out of it. And towards the midday, we had one of the foundation leaders come in and he said, I gave this beautiful background story of why foundation work is important at Salesforce. And then they said, we have these 3 or 4 areas that you could go to. It's local in the city in San Francisco, and you can actually volunteer. What that did was it gave me an immediate understanding of the importance of volunteering at the company at Salesforce. They just didn't say that, they actually made time for you as an employee to do that, to give back. And all in all, the cohorts we were with during those voluntary sessions, the new hires who all came the same day I did, we built that strong relationship forever. And we supported each other. And some of them were VP levels at that time, and I was just an individual contributor or mid-level managers. So they, no matter what your level was, you were all volunteering at the same time. So I would say Salesforce did that phenomenally well. And after my time at Salesforce, most organizations that I went at, when I had onboarding programs under me as a learning and development leader, I would make sure that something that's important for the mission of the company from a people perspective was loud and clear from day one.
Good. So we've talked about starting new roles and the first 90 days. or first 100 days. Now, let's talk about continue learning and growing on the job. What are the best way that you advise people in terms of making continuous improvement and growth on their career? What are your some suggestions from you?
I always recommend start with the growth mindset. If you think anytime, oh, been there, done that, or no, I don't need to learn this, that's where you're mistaken. And that can come in different perspectives. It can come as a tool, a technology piece, a way of processing things, or even being a good leader and managing people in a different way than you might have done earlier. So that's the growth mindset. Start with the growth mindset. I think in today's world, after COVID, what the world went through, the influx of online opportunities and digital learning has just gone, from zero to almost, I would say, 1,000, overnight. So if you say, I have this much budget, my company only provides these catalogs of learning, or I need this, that, and the other, I would be surprised if you didn't find something online, right? That meets your timing, meets your budget. So create a map and say in the next 3 months, I want to learn this. Now, I would caution you because as a new hire, the company expects you to learn the job, right? So make sure at least the first 1 year, your head's down, you're learning on the job, learning the processes, the systems. I have a whole chapter about understanding navigating the technology and the systems within your new role. That itself is a big one these days. But in your mind, make a little roadmap of learning also, and you can work with your mentors, you can work with online learning. There are so many different ways on seeing what's the best way you grasp knowledge, and then you can reinforce that learning in your daily job.
So, Dr. Miglani, what's one piece of advice that you wish every professional they knew about navigating their career?
I would say two things. I know you said one piece of advice, but I'll combine it with two things. One is don't be afraid to ask for help. You would be surprised to learn how many people are around you who are there to help you. And secondly, don't stop learning. That is such an important piece. Learn from your mistakes, learn fast, move fast, right? Don't just sit back and hold on to that, but say, oh, wow, I could have done this better. Great. And I'm sure I'm going to do that moving forward. So, those are the two pieces that I think go hand in hand. But that's what I would like to leave our listeners with.
Perfect. You are all about navigating career. So, let's do this. And you wrote a book about how to navigate one's career. My listeners are curious. How can they apply the principles from your book to elevate their career?
Thank you for asking that amazing question because I wanted to tell them that the book is ready for pre-order. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, anywhere that you shop globally. So please absolutely pre-order it. And then I will be sending some amazing free things to people who have pre-ordered in the next 1 or 2 weeks, which means you'll get some things like workshop area materials, which is almost $500 worth. So go out there and pre-order and would love to hear from you. So, just make sure you go out there and enjoy the book.
Awesome. So, what's the takeaway from your book?
The takeaway is don't stop learning, always be proactive for your career because if you're not, nobody else will be. So, make sure you take charge of your own careers.
Absolutely, I agree with that. So, we are now in the rapid fire questions. Um, can you tell us one book that really impacted you in terms of your career?
I think there are many, but the one that I would talk about is The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. That was the first book I picked up when I started a new job. And I think this was almost 2 decades ago. And it's a fascinating book. If you haven't, definitely pick it up.
What's your first job that you ever had?
My first job was in University of Idaho, where I was brought in to design the online MBA program single-handedly.
Oh, that's awesome. So, remote work, hybrid work, or in person, what's your favorite?
Hybrid combination is best.
I agree. What's one word to describe your career journey?
Not straight.
Great. It's
Two.
uh yeah, yeah, I get that. I get that. So what's the favorite city you've worked in? I know you were in the Bay Area, or maybe you are still there. You mentioned Hideout. What's the favorite city where you worked?
When I was younger, San Francisco. Now with the family, I love San Jose. So those are
So,
the two places.
all right, that's good. Dr. Miglani, what's maybe uh one thing that you want to share with my listeners that we have not touched on?
I think you talked about everything. It's really important for people to make sure they have a group of mentors that they can work with. Not everybody has all the different skills that you're looking for. So make sure you surround yourself with the right group of people who are there to support you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining us on the Career Evangelist podcast. We appreciate your time, Dr. McLanning.
Thank you.